Hey guys, what's up? Like many other normal children growing up, I used to collect Swiss Army knives, as well as other random multi-tools like these, and I've always been in love with them. I think they're a great gift idea. I use mine all the time. For example, cooking in the forest when you forgot utensils.
Oh. Didn't burn this time.
Wouldn't recommend this. And these are an even better gift if you're going to personalize it. So this will be a really simple video today, nothing fancy, so it's great for beginners as well. My friend got this from his girlfriend, and he wanted it engraved. If you're wondering why your girlfriend hasn't gotten you one of these, it's probably because you're not subscribed to this channel, so go ahead and do that if you'd like. You can also subscribe to my second channel. So to start, I've printed out and glued his initials to the blade, and then I put their anniversary on the scale here, and I'll start with this Dremel 106 engraving cutter. Unfortunately, size matters, but in this case I won't go too big with the engraver so I can get the depth I need. When I'm engraving into a paper template like this, I like to engrave just deep enough to get into the wood, but not too deep because it's really hard to see what you're actually doing. I basically just want an outline once the paper's removed. And if you look closely, you'll see that I'm sort of pulling the bit, using the bottom of that engraving tip to carve instead of pushing from the tip. I find it a lot easier to control doing it like this. I also move the piece a lot to maintain that technique. If you do want to be safer, you can use a vise, but I prefer hurting my fingers sometimes. And I used a regular water-soluble white glue, so I just have to get it a little wet to get it off. A little rubbing usually helps there. Alright, template's off. Now I can just go freehand really slowly and gently. I'm still using that pulling motion to try to maintain control. For the depth, I'm just matching the thickness of the engraver tip, which is probably about a 32nd of an inch. By the way, I'm using a Dremel flex shaft on a Dremel 4300, but pretty much any Dremel can do engravings like this. I get comments a lot about the Dremel Stylo or the Dremel Lite, and those should both be fine for this. And by the way, you don't need a flex shaft, I just find I get better control since these engravings are pretty small. And additionally, I'll put Amazon links to all the tools I use in this video in the description. So now the engraving's a little dusty and the edges are rough, so I'll give it a quick pass with an abrasive buff, and I'll try not to scuff the metal. Let's keep touching it up a little. I don't really mind if it's not perfect, because it shows it's done by hand instead of a CNC or a laser. Maybe that's a bad excuse, but it works for me. I'll buff it out again real quick. And you can see the letters aren't super defined since the engraver tip was rounded. So I'm going to use this Dremel 111 bit to try to make them a little sharper since the tip's flat. You don't really need to do this. I kind of wish I didn't. And I'm just going really carefully around the edges, but apparently not carefully enough. So I broke off the center of the 8. So off camera, I used the 111 again, just to make the center circles indented. It doesn't look perfect, but if there's something I've learned about engraving, it's that imperfect is better than incomplete. But yeah, not too bad. I think I'll leave it as is. Time for the metal. Same deal here. I'm just lightly etching through the paper with this Dremel 7134 diamond bit. This one has a flat top instead of the sphere, so I actually prefer to use it side to side instead of that pulling motion. Hopefully these tips make sense. Since I'm working on a mirror finish, I don't need to etch it too much for the engraving to be visible. Let's get that paper off again. Alright, the outline's pretty good, and I'm going to switch to the 7103 now, since I think I can get a more uniform depth with it over the 7134. I'm still running these at 25,000 RPM by the way. And you can see I brought it really close to me with the camera, sort of at a weird angle, because I really don't want anything in the way that can screw me up. Unlike with the wood here, if I slip and scratch the mirror finish of the blade, it'll be really hard to fix. And by the way, if you're a beginner watching this, or even an expert, remember to always read your tool's manual for operating and safety instructions. I'm wearing appropriate eye and ear protection as well as a good mask. Stay safe. Anyways, if you're smarter than me or not, you probably could use a vise. Because I'm watching this back right now thinking I probably shouldn't encourage people to carve on a loose blade with a high-speed rotary tool. But yeah, I don't make the best decisions sometimes. So, this looks pretty good considering I'm doing this for free, so let's glam up the wood a little bit. I'm going to start with the 320 abrasive buffing wheel at 15,000 RPM. And my goal here is to get the wood scales to look even better than they did from the factory. And now to the 400 grit, I'm still trying my best not to scuff up the metal. And now I'm going to hand sand from 800 to 1000 and finally 2000 grit. This thing's going to be silky smooth. And now to my favorite part, let's oil her up. The foil and gloves are just to minimize any mess. I've dribbled a little bit of oil on here. I'm using mineral oil, or you could use all sorts of oils, but I have like a gallon of this stuff. And it's food grade and clear. I'll link what I use below if you want to check it out. And yeah, it doesn't fail to make me smile. It's a pretty nice color change. These scales are really thin, so I really don't need much. I also always like oiling engravings like these because it really makes them stand out more. Alright, let's let that sit for a while and then I'll rub off the excess. And here we are, super smooth. The engraving's a little darker, and I think that's because it's a bit rougher in there than the rest of the wood. Definitely would rather have that 8 look normal, but what can you do? I'll be more careful next time. And then that nice subtle initials carving on the blade. Anyways, this project was really fun for me, especially since this engraving here I think was my first ever Dremel engraving. It wasn't the rotary tool though, it was the Dremel 290 reciprocating engraver. Pretty neat little tool, I could probably use it more often. Here's our engraving out in the sun. Again, this is a really beginner-friendly, quick project, and such a great project overall if you want to customize a functional gift for family or friends. If you end up engraving something as a gift for yourself, feel free to share it in the comments. While I'm here, shout out to a nice lady at Kramer Antiques in San Bernardino for giving me this way back in the day. Make sure you subscribe if you want more complex projects. I promise I'll make cooler things. Leave a comment and drop a like to help this video out. Also, feel free to leave a like if you're into this hanger I made a long time ago. This was with a wood burner and a knife. Pre-rotary tool days, but I think it came out pretty well. I just did a flag because I didn't know what else to do, but I like it. Also, feel free to check out my second channel. I'm trying to grow that a little bit, but thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.